watching Wake Up Wisconsin Weekend.
Good morning, everyone. First thing you're probably going to notice when you look outside this morning is it might look a little different than when you went to sleep last night.
Yeah, but that's what's so interesting about it, right? That's why we love living in Wisconsin.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, so we are keeping an eye on these visibilities.
Sounds good, Star. Thank you. Time now 6:33, and with much of Wisconsin in store for some snow, plow crews want to make sure you're minding your safety and theirs when out on the road. The State Patrol's new law of the month reminds drivers not to follow too closely. You must stay 200 feet behind a plow at any speed above 35 miles an hour. Eau Claire's highway commissioner says it takes a long time for a 100,000-pound plow to slow down. So by keeping your eyes open, you can help plow drivers do their job safely.
Well, you want to be cautious.
Fines for not staying far enough behind a plow truck start at $175. Street crews across the state are out treating the roads right now. Plow crews in Madison have been monitoring conditions all day yesterday and overnight, ready to clear the roads if needed.
Our first order of business is all.
Crews say they will only plow all streets if the area gets 3 or more inches of snow. Officials say you should leave extra time to get where you need to be and take it slow. If you turned off the Badger game early last night, you might think that they won, but unfortunately that is not the case this morning. The final score was 38-31. Alec Osmus was at the game in Indianapolis and has reaction from 3 Badgers. That's new this morning.
Good morning from Indianapolis.
Alec, thank you. And today the Packers play the Texans at Lambeau Field. The game starts at noon. The Packers going into this one with 5 wins and 6 losses, and the Texans with the opposite record, 6 wins and 5 losses. Meanwhile, Lambeau Field is now covered in lights. The Festival of Lights kicked off last night. There were holiday movies, card making, and choir performances in the Lambeau Field atrium. Santa Claus was also there, and of course, the tree was there too. More than 10,000 lights are on the tree that's now up on display for the rest of the holiday season. Time now is 6:37. Day 4 of the presidential recount here in Wisconsin starts later today. As the process continues, officials from each campaign are watching carefully to make sure every ballot is counted accurately. Nick Buffo's got you covered as observers make sure the recount is done fairly. Nick Buffo reporting there. Nick, thank you. A joke and a waste of time. That's what Reince Priebus is calling the recount here in Wisconsin. Priebus is the current Republican National Committee chairman. He's slated to become Trump's next chief of staff. This morning, he's joining Mike Boucher on Up Front. That conversation continues later this morning. Priebus will also comment as to whether other officials from Wisconsin are being considered for positions in Trump's administration. It's 6:39. Right now, former Cuban leader Fidel Castro is being laid to rest. Santiago de Cuba is where his funeral is being held. He'll be buried in one of the oldest cemeteries in Cuba and in the city where his revolution started. What you're looking at now is video of Castro's ashes arriving in Revolution Square yesterday. The caravan carrying his ashes went on a week-long journey across Cuba. It has been 1 month since a Rusk County deputy was shot and killed, and still no charges have been filed. Deputy Dan Glaze had been called out to check out a vehicle that looked suspicious south of Ladysmith. After a search and a standoff, which included deputies being fired at, Doug Nitek was taken into custody. Eau Claire County Sheriff Kramer says Nitek hasn't been charged yet because his investigators are still working on interviews and a more accurate reconstruction of the crime scene. Sheriff Kramer says it's not unusual for an investigation to take this long, and he says he has no idea when it's going to be finished. He also says there's no rush since Nitek is being held for violating probation from a repeat drunk driving conviction. Police have identified the man who kept officers in an 8-hour-long standoff on Madison's north side this weekend. Madison police say 35-year-old Antonio Rollins is in custody now after he held up 3 people in an apartment building. Authorities say Rollins would not allow 2 children and a woman to leave the apartment over on Kipling Drive near the airport. He faces multiple charges, including having a stolen firearm and substantial battery. Leaving a party, a 19-year-old was shot this weekend, and he doesn't know who did it. Police say officers were called to Falcon Circle in Monona, where they found the injured Paul Little. He says he was shot in the parking lot of the Chase Bank on West Broadway, and he didn't get a good look at the shooter. Little went to the hospital and is on antibiotics. He thinks the suspects could be two men in their mid-20s. Thanks to a one-of-a-kind program here in Wisconsin, teachers in Rock County and now across the U.S. are learning how to take action and care for students during an active shooter situation. Unfortunately, the need for this type of training is becoming more and more apparent. Catherine Larson has more on the unique effort to save students' lives when minutes matter. If you or your loved ones are leaving home for the holidays, you might want to consider a security system. And if you're watching your budget, we have an idea especially for you. 6:44 on your Sunday morning. You're watching Wake Up Wisconsin Weekend.